Eskom board chairperson Mpho Makwana says Eskom is looking at ways on how to cushion the impact of the 18.65 tariff increase that was announced by Nersa last week. This is despite President Cyril Ramaphosa announcing that he has spoken to the power utility to halt the implementation of the hike while negotiations are underway to possibly reverse it. Well, civil and opposition political parties are calling for the increment to be abandoned altogether.
What has been asked of Eskom is to look at whether we are able to cushion the impact of the 18.5% by looking for other ways of implementing the 18.5% tariff. So the matter of how we implement the tariff, as I explained on a different platform earlier this morning, is driven by a legal principle called functionis ex officio. You perform your function in relation to a legal framework. The model that governs Eskom in terms of whether you purchase a screwdriver or whether you purchase a big piece of equipment is all driven by a predetermined regulatory model by the regulator. So including the tariff, it is all predetermined in that framework.
Well, let's get more detail now on this, and we speak to the ANC's head of presidency, Sibongile Besani. Mr. Besani, let me thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with exactly what the Eskom board chairperson clarified to us on this show yesterday, and that is to say the president did not say to them that suspend the implementation of this tariff increase. Instead, what was asked of them is to find ways to cushion the impact with regards to the implementation of this. Why would the president mislead the public in this way?
No, good morning, Claudia, and thanks for having me. I think it's very clear what is being spoken about. The president did not mislead the public. The president is alive to the challenges that are facing Eskom. And those challenges, the president is aware that they come a long way. And Eskom on several occasions has been applying to Nersa for these increases. Now, the South African population, citizens, the people are faced with challenges of high costs, the economy that still have to perform to its maximum, and levels of unemployment. Now, what the president is basically saying is that we need to strike a balance. The increase of Eskom has to be reconsidered so that there's a balance between the needs of Eskom and what the population, the reality on the ground, is going through. And this is the message that the president has been communicating to the structures of the ANC.
Mr. Besani,
if you look at what's said in the Free State and yesterday.
Yeah.
So he has not been misleading the public. The crux of the matter is that the president is looking at the need to strike a proper balance in responding to the realities that our people are facing. And Eskom is confirming exactly that the president is engaging with them. So the president is not sleeping on the duty.
Mr. Besani, I put it to you that you are now engaging in semantics because suspending the implementation of a tariff increase is as clear as daylight, and that's to say stop for now. The Eskom board chairperson says, no, that's not what was asked of us. What is asked is to say, find ways to cushion the impact. So what I'm saying to you is that the president, in his address in the Free State, goes further to say it will be, quote unquote, an injury to the people of South Africa if this increase were implemented whilst we are on load shedding. What the president is clearly trying to do is appease the public to thinking that he is doing something about this when he knows very well he cannot. So again, I'm avoiding using strong words such as the president has lied, but the president has misled the nation.
No, the Eskom chairperson is telling you now that the president has said, let us push him. If you have an increase that has been approved and somebody comes to you and says, look, you need to cushion, you need to strike a balance, that simply means that you cannot implement this right now because the circumstances that the South Africans are facing are dire. Therefore, you need to find a balance, you need to create a cushion. So that is not misleading because it is about saying right now implementing that increase that has been approved by the regulatory body, it would be more dire than being helpful. So cushioning simply means that you need to look at various options on how to implement it as is immediately.
Mr. Besani, let me say this to you, that because we clearly are not going to agree here, let's then move to why the president thinks that he can issue such an instruction to Eskom, which will be in defiance of the regulator Nersa. Let me remind you, and perhaps members of the public who may not be aware, that Nersa does not answer to the president. Instead, it accounts to Parliament, which is exactly the same institution that President Ramaphosa's government accounts to. So by issuing this instruction to say to Eskom, stop implementing this for now, is that not in defiance of that institution which operates independently of the executive?
No, look, Tolly, you must also remember that the shareholder of Eskom is government, and the state president is at the head of this government. Now, the president is not instructing Eskom to defy Nersa. If the president wanted that to happen, he would have maybe said, no, don't even apply for the increase and so on. Eskom has been allowed, in terms of its, as an entity of government, has been allowed to look into its situation, and it has applied to Nersa. It has not been stopped. Even right now, the president does not say defy. The president, representing on behalf of the shareholder or the people of South Africa, basically, he said there are material conditions that dictate that you cannot, you need to consider actually the fact that our people are in the economy is underperforming, and we understand your situation. So the shareholder cannot just keep quiet when the people are suffering, the high cost of living, there's all kinds of levels of high levels of unemployment and so on. It cannot keep quiet. It's not defiance. Actually, if you listen to the chairperson of Eskom, you realize that the president is engaging without instructing, but is engaging to say you need to consider a proper balance between what has been approved and the reality on the ground. And the reality is such that you need to serve the interest of the people. You can't implement it now.
Mr. Besani,
hence the word push. Yeah.
I have two quick questions before my time and you is up. And the first one, has to do with the realities on the ground. Eskom needs money in order for it to try and patch up where it can. We know that it is heavily indebted. What happens in the scenario where the Eskom leadership says, we can't stop, Mr. President, we cannot not implement this tariff? Is that not going to be seen as defying the president? Why is the president putting the Eskom leadership in such a predicament?
Look, I think the Eskom leadership understands better the situation of South Africans, of the economy, and Eskom leadership understands also that they have to make sure that the power stations, there is generation of electricity and so on. Obviously, there are contradictions here, and then there has to be a balance that has to be struck. So we believe that the president, by engaging the Eskom leadership, he's not engaging on the basis of thinking that the Eskom leadership will be inconsiderate of the plea that has been forwarded. So engaging on the basis that the Eskom leadership is au fair with the situation in South Africa. So we're dealing with a scenario where we think that a balance will be struck between what is on the ground, what is the economy, and the situation that Eskom finds itself in. So the president is engaging on the basis that there will be a common understanding.
All right.
Not an understanding of defiance and so on. We understand the predicament, but when two bodies engage, we believe that there will be a common understanding to ensure that the people are cushioned, as the chair has said, and that the people are cushioned against the impact of these increases, where there is load shedding and so on. So, and where there is high levels of unemployment. So,
Mr.
that's
Besani,
the basis on which the president is engaging.
Final question to you, sir, and very briefly, if you can. You will remember very well the statement that was made by his predecessor, former President Jacob Zuma, that the ANC comes first, and perhaps some people interpreted that as saying, well, clearly the country comes second. The president has chosen to address a serious matter of energy insufficiency in the country via a party political platform. He cancelled a trip to Davos in order to stay in the country so that solutions can be found to stop severe load shedding. But he has not addressed the nation specifically on the problems at Eskom, and he chooses to go and make that address from a party political platform. Does the president really respect the people of South Africa?
The president respects the people of South Africa. If you remember, a week or so ago, the president even engaged various stakeholders, including the political parties, those who represent the people broadly. So he respects them. And I think it is quite incorrect to always delink the ANC from South African society and to create this artificial relationship. The ANC, whenever there's a problem in government, people do not just decry in the space. They decry the fact that the ANC is a governing party, therefore it has to be responsible. So it is also important for the president to engage, to ensure that the ANC is conversant with what is happening, so that it is up to speed in relation to provide service to the people. It's not about the ANC coming first before the people. No. The ANC is about service to the people, and engaging, updating the leadership of the ANC and structures is to ensure that the ANC does precisely what it is intended, it is supposed to do, to serve the people. So this kind of delinking of the ANC with the people is a bit disingenuous, and it misunderstands exactly how society broadly operates.
Sibongile Besani is the ANC head of presidency. Thank you very much for your time, sir.